So before we get started about the form builder, I do want to make sure that you guys have an understanding of an underlying technology, this Sage Service Operations. So what is Sage Service Operations? Sage Service Operation is a browser-based solution that is designed to provide information to the holders in the company to capture information in the field and write that directly back into the accounting solution. Sage Service Operations is also a site that is built with a responsive design. And what is a responsive design? This is going to allow you guys to be accessing it from your tablet or even mobile phone, but with every functionality that we're going to be showing here today. So diving into the form builder for Sage Operations, as you may be aware, Sage Operations can be used in your service department for work orders, as well as for your field people out in the construction site. I will be referring to both the service side of things as well as the job side in today's presentation. If you do not have license for the service management module, you will not have access to this service aspect of this program. Regardless, the information entering in today will, in different sections, will flow back into the respective place within your Sage 300. So work orders are going to flow back into the service management module, as job details are going to flow back into the project management module. The goal here is to capture the detail from the field in a way that we can generate an accurate information. However, those rows are needed to capture additional details for these activities that may not feed directly into Sage. So for the additional information, or excuse me, for all the additional information companies are looking for to capture, we can use these custom form builders, which we're going to cover today, and show you how to be able to create your own custom reports. As the native fields within Sage are writing back into your Sage accounting system, there are additional information that you're looking to capture. This way, this is where the form builder would come into place. The form builder allows us to capture an additional information from a work order or a job, enabling a paperless workflow, automatically attaching the forms to the record in Sage Service Operations. Forms can also be accessed by a user from their mobile device. We can require these forms to be filled out before an event, such as a work order. We can also require certain fields to be completed within that report. This will deliver automatically upon completion, either to a customer or back to the back office. Since we are live connected to your Sage 300 data, which will allow us to tie certain fields back into the record within Sage, we can then pull those payroll records, for the job names, parts, inventories, and more. So I would highly suggest you tackle these 3 points before starting a form in the Form Builder solution. The first question to answer is, what's the scope of the form? What type of record the form should be displayed on? Is it a quote, a work order, a job, or even a general? Once we've established that, we want to then determine where the form is going to be placed. Do we want it available for everyone on the work order? Or is this going to be to a specific customer? Or even maybe a specific trade? So when we call into the HVAC form, it comes up on an HVAC call. Next, we want to determine the fields that need to be captured. I will walk you through these steps today to create a form. A couple last slides for you is the first step to creating the form is going to be in our data collection. This is going to help us identify which pieces of information you have that are available. this is also where we're going to create or input all of the data pertaining to that form. Whereas the report view is going to allow us to customize how the report is laid out. So keep in mind, after we capture all this data, we can also hold multiple different reports in multiple different ways for that same data that we've entered in. Now, the last slide I want to go in before we dive into today's presentation is the logic and notification. So in this solution, we can apply any logic. So if-then logic. So if this criteria is met, then take this action, as well as all of these can be notified or sent out directly to people automatically within the solution. So now that we have the PowerPoints out of the way, let's take a quick dive into the solution itself. So while I pull up the Sage service operations, the first thing I want to highlight is our preventative maintenance checklist. So over on the right, you can see I've created this checklist in Word. This might be a common document that you guys are currently utilizing. And in today's presentation, we're going to go over how to create this within that form builder. The first step you want to do is go into your tools and go under forms. If you do not see this within your service operations, this ability, what you'll need to do is go into the administration, user roles, administrator right here, and hit modify. Going into the modify and scrolling down to other, you'll notice that this in the bottom has a little checklist. You need to ensure that these boxes are checked in order to be seen it or see the form abilities over in the tools section. So once we open up this form center, you'll notice a couple different tabs in the top: draft, published, and archived. So we can archive former reports or checklists that we have. Obviously, draft is while we're in the creating any of them. And then finally, the published is going to be what is available. And you can see what is currently active by the status, enabled or disabled. If it is enabled, it will appear inside that job location or that work order location. If it is disabled, it will not appear under that forms or under the reports in the appropriate section. Another thing to highlight in today's presentation, I have also included it in our handouts, which can be accessed through the webinar dashboard. But if you want an additional information, you'll see once we open up the Form Center, down here you can download the reference guide, which we'll talk about in a lot more detail than we'll cover in today's presentation. So the first step, as I mentioned, we're going to want to create a new report. So one of the first ways we're going to do is come up to the top, hit New Form, and this is going to bring our Properties menu. Before I get started, I'm just going to minimize this panel over on the left to give us more real estate. But the first description is, what are we going to name the form? So in this case, I can call it a preventative maintenance. Giving it a more elaborate description, so you can say preventative maintenance checklist. What type of form? So where is the form going to appear? In this case, I'm going to have this appear in our work orders. For you guys, it might pertain to a job or a quote or even a general form, and that's where they would be accessed within the site. Scrolling down would be what type. So I'm going to indicate this is going to be a service, as well as if you scroll down, you can see it's preventative maintenance. You would select the correct fields that would pertain to your form that you're creating right here in that form. If there are any problem codes or automatically, which would be checked. In this case, not, because it's the preventative list, so I don't have any problems. If there are any equipments that we need to include on this automatically, can be done right here, as well as agreements or even the account or even individual sites. So if this is only going to pertain to one of your customers, we can have that ability located right here on the site. So scrolling down, next steps we're going to see is the availability. Is this going to be an internal or customer view? So the internal only will only allow us to see it, where the customer view will also allow your people out in the field who are leveraging the ability to create their own service tickets can also see this, this particular check sheet if you want. For this case, this is going to be preventative maintenance again. I don't want anyone else to see it, so I'm only going to select the internal view. Next up is I'm going to hit save, and we're going to start to begin populating the data from the form into the individual report. So moving from left to right, we're going to go from our properties tab, which we just filled out all that data, into our data collection. This is where we're going to start to build out the essentials for this form. I'm going to put a title to it by hitting this selection break, giving it a label. And I can say again what the title of the form might be. As well as filling out additional information, so including a text for the customer name. It could be additional fields can be required throughout this presentation. So we might say you have to fill in the customer name, as well as when we put in the things like the address to it, you can say what is the address and also have that included. Again, moving down, we're going to include things such as the tech name, so for the technician who worked on it. And you can even do things of automatic lookup items. So in this case, you can say who the employee is automatically going to be pulled in for us. This way, we don't have to include or require this field. It will automatically be generated within the system. So moving down, you can even put today's current date, a default value, which would be that current date, and then also require that or not require. Again, just like we had for the employee, we're going to not require that individual field, so it's just going to automatically be populated. Next up is after we've included some of this top information that you see here, we're going to want to fill out the actual inspection items, okay? And the way we're going to do that is through this static matrix. So in our static matrix, what we're going to first build out is we're going to build out the actual inspection descriptions, and then moving to each individual check fields as well as notes you'll see in the top tab. So let me go ahead and pull that back in. So again, add column. In the first column, what we're going to want to do is just put in the description of that checked item and then hit add. These are going to add all the necessary rows by just copying and pasting into the correct field. And I'm just going to speed up a little bit so we can expedite the process. Yeah, we got two more. And the final one. So now that we have all the descriptions to this individual inspection item, the next thing is we're going to want to do is create another column. And the way we're going to add in columns, excuse me, is by this column section up in the top. I'm going to hit add in column and then select the fields that I want it to pertain. In the case of this checklist, this is going to be a checkbox itself. So I'm just going to simply mark checkbox and add the column. You'll notice below it's going to appear column label with each of these fields having a checkbox that we can indicate or automatically check. But the first thing I want to do is change the label. So in this case, we're going to go to the inspection item. Right next to that, you're going to see is good. So I'm going to indicate that on my column name, include that, and you're going to see it's updated now that on my form builder. Again, scrolling back up to the top, adding that additional checkbox for the second field. Including that in the form, and then we'll finish with the needs repair one. And add that in. And as you saw before, just like how we have the other three sections, the next field we'll want to do is our notes. And that's going to be the same way, is just select the add column field. The appropriate cell that would pertain to it in the case of notes is the notes, and then add that in at the last field and give it any description as well. So now we actually have the form built out. But in this case, maybe I want to include additional features that I might not have been able to include in the past. We can go back over to this components list and add things in like maybe upload image. So giving our technicians the ability to upload the fields, or as well as the ability to sketch on it. So now that we have those images, everyone might be familiar with the ability within Sage Service Operations is to sketch an image or a previously saved uploaded image. We can put that capability directly in the form, as well as include it or require those individual fields if necessary. But for the case of signatures, maybe I want to capture off the technician to have them sign off on this. So I can just say, this is going to be the tech signature and require this field upon on this form. Again, you'll also know that any of these fields are required by the little asterisks right next to the description of that field. So now this would conclude the portion of our data collection. So if you remember on that PowerPoint, we had those two, the data collections and the report view. So we've accrued everything. Now it's time for us to give the ability in the report view to create a specific layout or get the flow of what we want the report to look like. So I'm going to toggle over to the report view, and I'm just going to maximize this to make it a little bit easier for us all to see. So you're going to see this is going to be the standard report that we have in. Each will be listed right underneath it. However, if I want to create a new one from scratch, I can go into my reports or even duplicate these reports. So if I want to click the little gear, I can say duplicate report. And I can label whatever that report might be. Going back to the PowerPoint showing us how we can have that same data, but be broken out into multiple ways or to multiple people. So maybe having a report that is customer facing or to those customers, or we can even capture the customer signature all in here, can all be broken out just by this form. I'm next going to make that standard form the default one. So just go ahead. Do you want to include this or have this one to be the default? Go ahead and hit yes. So as we come into the reports or into this default, you're going to see that I'm going to now have a little bit more ability to create the layouts in here. So what I had mentioned is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of what we have so far and start with some of the basics. For the title, I'm just going to create just a header, which is going to give us one section, and drag in the appropriate fields. Next up is we have the text label as well as a few additional. Well, I'm going to include the text label into there. But for the site and the technician in today's date, I'm going to include that all in one line. And that's where I'll select this category here, which will allow me to put in all of these fields side by side by side. Next up, we're going to go back into the top column, and we're going to put in the static matrix, as well as the ability for the uploaded image, the ability to sketch it, and then finally the technician's signature. So this is a standard kind of out-of-the-box, easy report we can make. You will have obviously all this ability to create a report that you decide or what you want to see best. But the next would be going into our logic field. So the logic field is just like we had mentioned or included in the PowerPoint presentation earlier. The logic will give us the ability to create if-then statements. If this event is triggered, then follow up with this report. Or if this event is triggered, then email this out to the appropriate person, which will also segue us over into the notifications field. So we can add in notifications. So anytime that this report is generated, it can be emailed to someone maybe in our back office who would need to see this information, can all be emailed automatically for us. But what I'm going to do now is, now that the report is complete, I'm going to hit publish. So moving back into our properties before we actually go show that location again where it is in the form, I want to go into our properties. So now that the report has been published, you will need to go in and come back into your properties and make this visible in that report. The default value will be disabled, and all you will do is go in and say edit, and then add that into the report. So let me go back and hit save one more time. Oh, excuse me, and just toggle this on and off. So I'm going to enable this into our report, and then we're going to take a look at the All-State University and show you where that's going to appear now. So I'm going to open up the service site record. This report would be available to all of our work orders or all of our service sites. If you had, again, that report that's going to specifically target one client, well, we can trigger that so it only appears on that one client. But this is also where we would be able to see that information. So I open up a work order, an individual work order itself, go into our attachments. This is going to be an older one. So let's create a quick work order from scratch and show you when that is on the fly. And I'm just going to add some quick information pertaining to this. Opening up the work order will allow us to go into that reports tab that we had just gone before and be able to see any of the forms that we have. So again, the reason why it's not enabled is because I have it here and I need to go back into there. So that's where the form would be included. Again, if you wanted to have this on a job itself or enabled to just a job, you can also include it there, enable it there, and then publish it on the fly. So again, that was a quick high-level overview of the form builder. Just want to thank everyone for the time. Please feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to assist you guys with anything.